Welcome, everybody. We are live, or at least that's what it says. And we are Humanities team here. We have a nice program with Panache Desai and Karen Gordon and Karen Noe. And I'm Noah, Tim Noah. So thank you for joining. Everybody, we have we're all monitoring this whole new live streaming thing, so bear with us if anything comes up. But before we get started, my mother, Karen, would you like to say hello or any introducing words?
No, I'm just honored to be a part of this. That's all. Hi, everybody.
Yes, and so we also have Karen Gordon, who is, Karen, let's see, I'll ask you to unmute if you have no audio in the background. If not, then we can just go over to Garth. And so there should be, wherever you're watching, whether it's on Facebook or on our humanitiesteam.org or humanities.team or wherever you may be watching, there should be a chat. So type your questions and comments into chat and talking points, and we'll be sure to address them. So let's get started. Get out the popcorn, the kombucha. Garth, let's see some panache here, please.
Welcome, sweet friend. I'm Panache Desai, and I am honored to be here with you. Thank you for embarking on this incredible journey with me. You are a magnificent being. You have an infinite light and love within you. There is nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed, healed, changed, or improved. You have simply, my beloved sweet brother and sister, been conditioned out of your magnificence. You were born a possibility in this world, a unique expression of divinity, a place through which God is revealing more of God to itself. And by virtue of the fact that this is the truth of who you are, and this is what you've come here to share, your greatest blessing in this world is to move beyond all of the preconceived notions and ideas about how your life is supposed to be. You see, you're not here to fit in. You're not here to belong. And the more you pretend to be like everyone else, the more you suffer. At some point, you finally have to have the courage to embrace the authentic truth that is you and to express that into the broader world at large. I've discovered through the course of my own life that the degree to which I was trying to fit in and belong was the degree to which I was suffering. You see, because we're looking for love and acceptance and approval from people that don't love, accept, and approve of themselves. And so the end result is a fundamental invalidation of who we are as we are. And this extends to every single area of life and living. Instead of studying what we really wanted to study in school, all of a sudden we study what a family member decides is meant for us. Instead of marrying the person that we are deeply in love with, we relent and we marry the person that fits the mental picture of who we're supposed to spend our life with. You see, for every area of life and living, there is a different set of conditioning, a different set of limitations, and a different set of constraints that we have to move beyond. Transformation happens at the level of energy, vibration, and frequency. And life, as demonstrated by nature, is always moving us into more. So the only limiting factor is the fact that we are afraid to be that infinite being that we are. The only limiting factor is the truth that we are afraid to love, to be happy, to be intimate, to be connected to source, to God, to presence, to whatever name you wish to use, and that we are afraid to abide in the health and the vitality that is our natural state of being. So I'm not here to add yet more concepts and information to you. I'm here to support you in evolving into the fullness of who you are by allowing for the emergence of the truth that resides at your core. This is a truth that I never lost connection to. I was born into a very spiritual family in London, and I spent the first 5 years of my life in a meditation room. My grandmother would pray, she would chant, she would meditate every single day, and it was my favorite place to be. This is why meditation, presence, expressing energy comes so naturally to me. You see, and in that same way, we all have something that comes naturally to us. The only problem is that we've been so conditioned out of our natural state of being that we invalidate it. Maybe because it's easy for you. Maybe because you don't have to work at it. Maybe because in some way, shape, or form, it's just an innate ability that you've just overlooked. You see, my beloved friend, the reason why you are suffering is because you are no longer choosing from your heart. And it begins by overthrowing all of these preconceived notions and ideas about you. From my own life, I remember when I was going to university, I wanted to study philosophy. And my grandfather sent me down, and I had a lot of respect for my grandfather, moved to London from India with about 3 pounds and 5 kids, and built an amazing platform for all of us so that I can have the life that I have today. So out of respect for him, I sat down and said, Grandpa, I'm going to study philosophy. And he said, well, what are you going to do with a philosophy degree? Well, it makes perfect sense now. but nonetheless, why don't you do law and business studies? I'm like, okay, cool. So in that moment, I chose the approval of my grandfather over the joy and the love and the passion that I would have experienced had I studied what I actually wanted to study. You see, my greatest strength in life is that I've always been somebody who hasn't conformed. Because what I've discovered is that through making that choice to conform, to fit in, to belong, to seek the approval of my grandfather, I was experiencing suffering. And growing up throughout the course of my life, the more I tried to fit in and belong, the more I was living up to everyone else's version of who Panache I was, the more miserable I became. So there's a direct correlation between the degree to which you're unwilling to be authentically you and the degree to which you're suffering. And this is why I've discovered through deep inner work, through meditation and through divine revelation, that suffering actually is completely inauthentic. It requires so much effort for you to show up every day to be some other version of yourself than the version that you were made to be. God wasn't having a bad day when you were made. You were made in absolute perfection. So to sit here and invalidate any aspect of your being is just to perpetuate the ignorance that has been spoken over you by people who weren't conscious, by people who weren't aware. At some point, we have to have the courage to break that cycle. And that cycle begins to break when we begin to accept who we are at the level of our humanity. I'm going to stretch you and challenge you. There is nothing wrong with you. You are God experiencing God. You see, had I raised you from the age of 3 to know that every thought was God, every feeling was God, that your body was God, and that everything that you were interacting with was God, would you have a problem? The answer is no. Would we have any of the issues that we have in the world right now? No. And you can substitute that word God for any word that suits you. Love, empathy, compassion, light, whatever you want. Because the truth is, we are interconnected. There is a greater tapestry and play unfolding here. And we can't unfold that play and that perfection if we're constantly editing ourselves and second guessing ourselves, and we're constantly off balance because we're not tapped into our intuition and guidance and all that we need to truly move forward. So it's these preconceived ideas and notions in life that are getting in the way. So I, at the height of my misery and suffering, because I was completely living a lie, said to my mom, I need to go away and live like a monk for 6 months. And to my surprise, she said, sure. She said, are you going to go to India? I said, no, not quite ready for that version of monk. I'm going to go to America. So I went to a residential retreat center in the Catskills and spent 6 months of my life praying, meditating, chanting, and basically getting back to the spirituality of my youth. In that time, what I began to uncover or unveil was the power that has always lived within me. You see, here's the thing that you need to know. God lives within you, as you, for you. I know it's a shock. I know nobody said that to you in a while. Maybe nobody's ever said that, but at some point we just have to end the mystery. You are a divine being. So here's what began to happen. Everything that had been superimposed over me, every thought, every belief, every emotion that I had falsely identified with as the truth of who I was, began to be lifted off of me. And as all of these things began to be lifted off of me, all of my innate gifts and abilities began to come back. All of a sudden, I knew everything about everybody again. I could feel what they were feeling. And by feeling it inside of myself, it would disappear in them. If they had a problem or an issue or something that was out of balance, I could simply put my hand on them, or just through my intentionality alone in being with them, resolve whatever was going on. You see, I was restored through that 6-month window. It created a huge opening for me to get back to that first 5 years of life and living. And some of you are like, oh, that's great for you. You were born into a spiritual family. You were born into a meditation room for 5 years. But guess what? We all came from love. We all came from God. We all came from perfection. So it's only ever the pain and the personalization and the identification that keeps us distanced from the oneness that is our birthright. So, are you ready? The degree to which you are suffering right now means the degree to which you don't have what you want financially, the degree to which you don't have what you want from the level of health and well-being, the degree to which you don't have what you want in the area of love and intimacy, the degree to which you don't have this peace and this connection that is your birthright, is the degree to which you are living somebody else's version of your life. And I'm sharing this with you because I love you. Because until all of us are free, none of us are free. And we're living in an age now where we must revert back to who we authentically are, revert back to being natural, and abide in this state of connection that we came here, to express and share for the benefit of all of the world. So where have you in your life allowed the opinions of others to override that which authentically resided in your heart as the truth of your life? Because that's where the journey begins. The journey begins by taking a good, honest look at who you've become. Because who you've become is who you've become in order to survive. In a world where you didn't feel safe, in a world where you don't fit in a world where you don't belong, in a world where you're not accepted, who you've become is who you've created yourself to be. I know growing up in London, outside the spiritual room, I was raised in a jungle. Literally, it was a game of survival every day. And so I had to move away from the stillness and presence, even though I never left it. It was deeply ingrained within me, to begin to be able to survive, to begin to be able to adapt, to begin to be able to learn what it takes to be able to make it in that environment. Until eventually, vibrationally, thanks to the spirituality, thanks to the evolution, thanks to the expansion, I was able to up-level my personal vibration and frequency, and thus, in doing so, change the experience of my reality. So here's what I need you to know, because right now, some of what I'm saying may be overwhelming, and you may already be present to emotion. The first thing that I want you to know is that I love you, that I'm going to guide you through this process of emergence step by step, and that we're going to support you in unleashing your limitless nature. And there are going to be moments where I'm going to have to carry you on my back, and I love you and I will do that. But please know that you're not alone. Please know that what you're about to embark on is a journey that most human beings will never have the courage to embark on. You see, because your enlightenment isn't something that you have to attain. Your limitless nature isn't something that you're working toward. It's something that's already present inside of you. It's just that it has become enshrouded. It has become enshrouded. You are living under the dominance of the emotional body, the dominance of the mental body, and the dominance of your physical reality. And you are no longer expressing the freedom and the full potential that resides at your core. So what preconceptions have you bought into as the truth of who you are? Where have you compromised your alignment, your passion, and your love for belonging, for approval, and for acceptance? Where are you lying to yourself? Because until we can get honest about where we have lied, where we have bought into the illusion, where we have tried to appease other people, we can't uncover and access the greater fulfillment that lives within us. Your life is here to be lived for you, not for any other person, but for you. And the more you are congruent and aligned internally, the more you express the dynamic potential that you've come here to share. And so our first step together is to begin to identify where you made a decision to fit in and belong that robbed you of the aliveness of the love, of the passion, of the greater possibility that is your authentic expression. I want to salute you. I want to thank you. I want to, in every way, just embrace you right now for the courage that you are displaying in wanting to authentically transform. This is the end of bypassing. It's the end of adapting. And it's the beginning of changing your energy and changing your life.
Well, thank you, Panache. Boy, how he presents things is just so simple and powerful. So thank you, Panache. Thank you, Garth, for sharing this. So thank you all for joining. You should see a chat wherever you are on Facebook. So feel free to type in chat to if you have any points or cool little segments or quotes that you'd like to incorporate or little hoorays. Feel free to engage because we are looking at those. So we have our guests today. And before we get over to my mother, Karen Gordon, I'm hoping I can get your analysis. Karen Gordon is our communications communicator, and she tends to take some thorough notes. So what's your take, Karen?
Two things. You are God experiencing God. I mean, just something that we can all think about and embody, hopefully. And as he said, replace God with any word you like. Life, love, joy. We are that. And we can live that in every moment of every day. The other thing he said that I made a note of was abide in the natural state of connection. I mean, this is just so beautiful and so easy. If we believe this is true, that our natural state is a state of connection and oneness and being one. If we believe it's true that that's our natural state, and then we have the willingness to abide in that, it will absolutely change our lives in an instant. And that's my analysis for the day.
Great, thank you, Karen. And I like, I do like how you picked out these quotes because I made note of a couple others. Well, first of all, the whole concept of, you are God experiencing God, and use whatever word you want. I would even say use any word, every word, because all apply. You are the flower experiencing the flower. You are whatever you see or think, experiencing whatever you see and think. So God just covers all of these things. At least it should, or at least
Yes.
it's what it's built to do. This concept.
I like to
Stapler.
say I am the stapler. You've heard me say it before, my teammates here.
There is a concept in A Course in Miracles called special relationship, and Karen, in fact, has a special relationship with the stapler.
I do.
No, it's holy relationship.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Noah.
So I'd like to bring in Mother Karen here, and also Karen, Sister Karen here. Feel free that I'd like this to be an open conversation. So whoever's inspired, feel free to chime in or follow up with a question. I think we all have the Zoom etiquette where if we unmute, we're probably going to say something.
Sure.
So Mother Karen, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And I'm hoping, well, my first question is what is the level of honesty that can be brought forth here? Because I say this because I know that you have gone through a significant challenge recently and a significant perhaps change in perspective. And this is certainly rooted in authenticity. Now, before you continue, what stands out to me, what seems to fit, what seems to be congruent here, perhaps the one quote that I took from
I wrote
Panache,
it down too. Yeah.
and it's when
Degree to
Panache
which
says,
you're suffering, that one.
Panache says, the degree to which you're suffering right now, in any aspect, financially, romantic, whatever, to the degree to which you're suffering is the degree to which you're living somebody else's version of your life, to which you're living somebody else's version. Of course, Panache talks about authenticity and the power of authenticity, the power of vulnerability, the power of honesty. And so my mother, I'm hoping you can, along these lines, and I'm hoping you could share a bit about what you've experienced and how it has led you to perhaps see and experience things differently.
Okay, I'm going to let it all out. Let me start by saying I am booked, and I've been booked for 2 years ahead of time for about 15 to 20 years. I'm a psychic medium. So I really don't know what I'm going to be doing 2 years ahead of time, but I don't want to disappoint anybody. And I just kept taking appointments over and over and over. And needless to say, this has been taxing on me. It's been a lot, but I just continue and I continue and I continue. I'm really good at helping everybody else, but I'm not good at helping myself. Right? So I'm exactly what he's saying. The degree to which you're suffering is the degree to which you're living someone else's version of you. I'm just trying to help everybody. I'm doing the best I can, but I have to understand that I'm part of that oneness. I'm part of everyone and everything. I have God within me too. I am God too, right? So what happened was, let's go back by saying we are magnetic beings. Whatever we're thinking and feeling, we're creating in our lives. The law of attraction, for those of you who know about the law of attraction, nothing in your life is a coincidence. We've created everything, good, bad, or indifferent. I have been working nonstop. I've had deadlines that are due December 1st. Currently, I'm working on angel cards. 250 to 300 words for 44 cards due December 1st. So I'd come home from work the last several months, answer all my emails. I don't have anybody doing it for me. Several hours, stayed up all night, didn't get sleep, went back to work the next day. And I kept saying in my mind, I really need some rest. I really need some rest. I just need to be by myself. I said it over and over and over. In October, I contracted COVID. And it's no surprise. Everything in my life is creation of my thoughts and feelings. In a way, I was scared, but I was relieved that I was able to actually stay home and not do anything. As a matter of fact, I couldn't lift my head from the pillow. It took about 6 weeks I thought I was going to leave this planet. I'm not going to go into the suffering and all of that, but my take on this was that I didn't have to wait until it was too late and then force myself to get sick in order to stay home. So what happened, and this is what you were asking, when I started to feel better, which has only been about 2 weeks now. Did you ever hear that song, I Hope You Dance?
Of
And
course.
I hope you never lose that sense of wonder. I hope you dance. I hope you never lose that sense of wonder. I lost my sense of wonder. I lost it. And when I started to feel better, everything was just so wonderful. I went outside for a walk with my dog and oh my gosh, the cold air was, I just was enjoying it so much. The sunsets, the sunrises, the leaves, the electricity, everything was, everything's beautiful. And I said, I lost my sense of wonder because I guess I was inauthentic, right? I was living everybody else's life, what they expected of me. And I love doing, let me go back by saying, I love doing what I'm doing, but there was no more Karen left. It was all given to everybody else. So I need to be part of this big picture. I still want to give to everyone and everything, but I don't know what I'm going to be doing 2 years from now. And I've always been scheduling appointments 2 years ahead of time. I've always been doing that. Trying to think of something that I could do to, I was talking to Noah about this, what should I do? I had this email I was going to send out that I was just going to retire, as Actually, I was going to take all the appointments I already had scheduled, and then the following year just not do anything because of what happened. And I said, that's not authentic either, because I love doing what I'm doing. So what I might be doing is maybe 6 months ahead of time, maybe, and then say, okay, I'm taking appointments again. And then whoever's first comes and gets, and take maybe 1 or 2 days off a week, whatever it is, whatever it is. And I want everybody to hear me out. It's not just about Karen Noe. Everyone, don't lose your sense of wonder. Don't lose you in giving. All of us here on Humanities Team, we want to give. We're givers. We want to work, make the world a better place. I'm all about that. We are all one, and whatever we do to ourselves or another affects everyone. But we're included in that whole. And we can't give to anyone unless we give to ourselves. I actually do crazy things now at night. I'm like, good job, Karen. I love you. And I talk to myself, it's like, whoa, I never did that before. And I'm like, no, I can't. Somebody asked me to do something. And I said, I really can't. It's just too much for me at this time. I'm really sorry. And they said, okay. So this is what I'm asking every one of you to do. If you want to do something, do it. Not for everybody else, but do it for you. And in so doing, you're helping everybody else too. I promise you. Because the more you give, the more you receive. But the more you give to yourself, the more you're able to give to everybody else as well. And that's about it.
Beautiful. So also, if whoever's watching this is probably a giver, and
Yeah.
so I think what we have to make clear also is that it's our innate, you're not talking to yourself, Karen, mother. You're not talking to yourself, you're talking to God, experiencing God, so I guess we are talking to ourselves. So, but as long as we understand that talk to ourselves is talking to God. And so, but when we're treating ourselves with respect, first of all, our innate desire is to help others. And so if we're in this place of wonder, in this place of our calling, and
Yes.
wow, I just need to do this, even though I never had done this before, or I'm just called to drive over across the country, whatever it may be, we can look at it from two lenses. We can always look at anything and say it's selfish. We can always look at anything and see how it's selfless. But if we're internally doing something because we're called to do it, we can be assured that it's for the greatest good, not just for ourselves, but for all that's around us. How do we know? Because this is the language of God. God is telling us very simply, not in words, because words can get twisted, not even necessarily sometimes in thoughts, sometimes in words, but just the feeling that we have of just, if we're somewhere that we're called to be, it's obvious. It's obvious. And the next step is obvious. And the next step after that is obvious. And in this state for long enough, any step that's maybe off of path of obvious, it's obvious that it's not. It's like, whoa, stepping on filbert shells. Karen Gordon has filbert shells in her backyard. And so if you're walking on the lush green grass and you take a step off path onto some nutshells, you'll know it right away, and you get right back on this path of the calling. So it's not about being, it's not selfish or selfless. It's just following the calling, the authenticity.
Can I add something too? When you do something for yourself, energy expands, and people could feel our energy expanding. When we do it out of obligation, energy contracts. It's energy. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So when we understand that, when we're expanding our own energy, we can help so much more. Does that make sense? Contracting, we're in the shell, resenting it a little bit, I'm doing so much in your mind.
Well,
but
yeah,
I love
right.
giving. Don't you? I know all of us do. But boy, I have to give to myself too. And it took COVID. It took almost dying to realize that. Don't wait till it's too late to go through something like this. Don't lose your sense of wonder, enjoy every moment. Enjoy that cold air, enjoy the leaves, and life is beautiful and it's meant to be enjoyed.
And life, thank you. Thank you, Mother. Didn't need you here. So life, we're often, it's often we set these things up so that, we're waiting for the big event. Sorry, Mother, I muted you because I heard some feedback, but don't step away from us here. We're often kind of get maybe sidetracked or even deceived into thinking that there are some things in life that are more important than others. Of course, our calling is just fully important, and maybe you could think in this way, our calling is fully important, and anything else is unimportant. Because think about it, if we're doing something that we think that somebody else would want of us, we're all of a sudden just separated from reality. Rather than being in the truth of what we're called to do, we're here now, and it's obvious what we're called to do. Whether it's get a snack, it's obvious. We're here. What am I called to do right now? Not 5 minutes from now, not 10 minutes, not planning out, but right here, what am I called to do? It's obvious. And so if I'm taking a step away from what I'm called to do, which is here now, always, and saying, well, I feel like I should do this, but this person said that I should do this. We're all of a sudden 10 steps away from here now, and so it's no surprise that it has nothing to do with what somebody else is saying. They could have the greatest intentions, but we're going based on somebody else, another perspective on what we should be doing. And so this is the inherent, it's kind of like we don't have all the information available to us in a pinhole, but we do have the presence of God here now to trust, which comes through feelings and thoughts and sometimes words and just our general state. I know, Karen, Karen, my sister Karen Gordon, you'd like to come in here.
Yeah, I unmuted. Oh, we do have that within us. We can draw upon that all the time. What rose up for me was this idea of somebody else, saying that we ought to do something else. The trap that I fell into a lot in my life, in my life of domesticity with husband and children, what I did is I projected what I thought. Let's say my husband at the time, I projected, oh, I think that this is what he wants me to do. It wasn't even verified. It wasn't even confirmed. I didn't even ask. Now, my assumption was based maybe on history between us, or maybe it was just based on history from, when I was being raised in a family and watching somebody else act in a certain way. But regardless, it was false. And so it wasn't even somebody else trying to lord it over me, you might say, and say, you should do this. And then me in a kind of meek or, to keep the peace kind of way following that. It was me doing it to myself until I began to realize, no, first of all, what are you doing? You're playing such a silly game. And secondly, we always can tune in and hear the call. The other piece I want to say is that, Karen, you mentioned this, when we do take care of ourselves, when we listen and follow, it's not just good for us, it's good for everybody. And that's also something that I didn't quite realize when I was married and raising children, was I thought I need to do for everybody else. And of course I wanted to. I love them and I always wanted to give and do. But I did neglect myself quite a bit. And what I didn't realize then that I do know now is when I do listen to the next step for me, the next movement for this personality, it is good for everybody involved. I've seen it happen over and over again. And it was surprising at first, but now it feels natural.
Yes, it is. And first of all, Mother, if you'd like to say, just be sure to unmute yourself if you'd like to say anything. But I think there's often this sentiment that peace is just staying away from conflict, but it's not true peace. I don't know if it's Martin Luther King that says that it's not, it's this kind of peace that there's no conflict going on, and so essentially before there was a conflict in slavery, you could say by that definition that there was peace with the slaves and it but that's not true. Conflict is peace is resolving, coming to a greater understanding collectively, so that if we're in relationship, relationship is not any one person alone. Relationship is fully two perspectives or any number of perspectives it's the thing that exists between. So it's not any one. So that when we may not know what somebody is seeing or thinking, but we know the state of the relationship between, because it's a part of us. So we may not have to think about what so-and-so is thinking about us, but if I feel into the relationship, I know what it is. I could tell you why, because I'm part of it. I'm equally part of it as the other perspective. And so if we feel something, if we truly feel something, and it's not just a surface emotion or not just a reaction, if we're feeling something, we've been sitting with this, we're really called to bring it up, to surface it, even though we may think it may cause conflict, because the true conflict is brewing within us. It's like this piece that I have to just bring this up, and if I don't, the conflict will expand, because it will expand within me. If I bring it up, it's kind of like taking a Band-Aid off. It can cause some sort of tension, but this is what is necessary to lead to peace. I know Marianne Williamson often says we need to be honest with ourselves to transform, to grow. We can't just kind of look and say, I'm not going to look at that, and so I'm going to pretend it's all good. Because in so doing, if we're bringing up these things that may be difficult, we're actually allowing ourselves to grow and allowing the other person to grow. It's what's best it's what's truly best for the whole, just being authentic. This is not to say mean, of course. I don't think anybody here would be mean, but if we're feeling something, it's like, I'm just truly feeling this, and I just have to surface it. So go ahead, Mother. I know you would like to chime in.
No, you could be kind in telling, I don't know if you mean if somebody's hurting you. Is that what you mean? That's difficult. That's something I have to work on as well. But imagine all these people, and I'm saying thousands, like emails and appointments and all of that. I'm not just doing one person. It's not a one-on-one. But I think what we must do is be authentic, as you're saying. If somebody is hurting you, we could do it in a very nice way. Something just happened today. I don't know if I should share it. I could share it. I share it. I've had my house on the market with a friend client it's a contract for 6 months, and we're in the 5th month. And she said, let's extend it. And I said, oh. And the old Karen would have said, okay, all right, I'll do that. And I just said, I said, you know what? I just have to think about it a little bit. Because this is a big thing. It's a house and it's a lot of money, which I need right now. And she said, I don't know what somebody else would do that would be different than what we're doing. And it's true, but I just need to think about it. I had to verbalize just that. And I love her very much. I do. I had to think of my needs too, because this is very important. I need to sell my house. But you see how I did that? I didn't say, because she's doing best she can,
Of course.
But I need to do what's best for me too. So that if that's in any indication.
But
And I
it's
love her very much.
Of course. But your love,
I had to say, maybe I got to think about it. Maybe. And she goes, would you use this person? I said, I wouldn't use that person. Maybe I'll research who's the top realtors or something that in my area or something like that. That's all. It was difficult for me. The old Karen would have said, okay. That's all. That's big, right? You know me.
I know. I know. And it's what we all know and is that your love for her is not contingent on whether you renew the contract. Your love for her is set. It's perfect. I love you because you are. But I just need to use somebody else, you know? It's not, it's like, I think also, just as a side note, if she's asking you, she's not, if she doesn't know what somebody else would do, then it's kind of a tell. You know, there's many other things that people could be doing. To think that she's doing everything. But anyway, I mean, if you're just being honest, you're not, I know you, Mother Karen, you're not capable of being mean. So, but if you're, I just need to use somebody else. Like there's a truth to this.
So in other words, say it in a gentle way. You know, I'm all about trying to see through the other person's eyes. And I talk about this often as a psychic medium. You know, oftentimes when messages come through, you know, they talk about going through a life review where you're able to see and feel how you've affected each person, you know, in your life when you were in the physical body. And as if you are the other person, because the fact is you are the other person. We're all one. And when you don't have the physical body anymore, you could feel that oneness in an instant. I'm very intuitive. I'm very empathic. I could see through the other person's eyes almost all the time. And that's a little, it's good for them, but it's not so great for me because I could see where they're coming from. And they're, you know, so I'm trying to speak to her as she could hear. You know what I'm saying? And I do love her very much. That's all. I'm all about
You love her
positive-
fully.
I do.
You love her fully.
Yes, I do.
You know, there's this other part of things. Some of us have a foundational belief that all is on plan, right? And so sometimes when we make a decision, and yes, of course, we'll be kind and gentle in delivery of something that we think somebody else might not like. An example is, for many years, I held a Reiki gathering here on my land. Once a week, people gathering. And at some point, I realized it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing anymore. I didn't want to host it. I didn't want it here. And I knew people really enjoyed it. They liked coming, and they wouldn't necessarily have another place to gather, at least not that exact same group. But I had learned by then to listen to my own calling, and I went forward with the decision. And some people didn't like it. You know, they were saddened or maybe even a little miffed, like, what do you mean you're taking this away? But what I found in that example and other examples, even when it's just me and one other person, is that if you wait long enough, it does seem to turn out that that decision was also good for the other person. So maybe they didn't know that they wanted to change. Maybe they didn't know that on the horizon was something else on that Tuesday evening that they were going to be asked to join, or that they decided to create. But over and over again, I've seen that happen. So part of it is trusting that idea that all is on plan, and really sincerely listening, not ego, reactive personality decisions, but really tuning in and listening to, you know, the messages, and listen, what's the next thing? And then add trust to that. It's going to be okay. It's okay for all of us. Why? Because we're one.
Yes. So I know Teresa in chat brought in, Teresa says, I loved when Panache says God was not having a bad day when he created you, or when she created you, when God created you. So this is another great quote. And I'd like to, based on what Karen just said, and also Teresa, we have a Course in Miracles discussion. So I'd like to bring in A Course in Miracles a bit here, where the teaching of A Course in Miracles can be summed up in the word atonement. And essentially we can think of it as forgiveness of what, or of whom? Of ourself, for the misperceptions we have had, or that we have. That's it. We're not forgiving another for actions. We're forgiving ourselves for all the misperceptions that we've had. It's kind of like this. Imagine, as Mother Karen has brought in here, as Karen Noe brought in here, we die and we experience, our physical body stops working. We go through this life review, and we're in heaven, say. I think I have a video playing. Let me mute this. Okay, so imagine, it's essentially like this. Imagine waking up in heaven and realizing, knowing for a fact that all the bad things that you thought happened or existed never were. Not because they didn't happen, but because we didn't see them in their entirety. So essentially only our judgments about these things, it's only our judgments about a thing that makes it bad is what makes it bad, because we don't know. We can't know based on the surface of some event whether it's good or bad. All that we know is that it is, and therefore God has willed it to be. And so from this starting point, we can say, we can know that if something is, whether it's a thought, whether it's something we say or something we do, something we experience, if something is, God has allowed it to be. God has not only allowed it, but willed it to be, willed it into existence. And so it's kind of like when we're in a situation where we think that we may, we want to do something, and yet we're not sure how other people will take it. We have to trust. We have to know that we're called to say this or do this, and just know that it's it's in the best interest of this collective self. So, I forget, Karen Gordon, what you were alluding to in your previous message, but I'm not sure if you have any thoughts to extend this.
I think I was just wanting to hammer in the point about trust. Not everybody has the same foundational belief that all is on plan, but if you do, then trust that. Trust that. Really listen to yourself and follow your own calling, and trust that it is for the collective good. Even sometimes when it feels prickly or uncomfortable, sometimes it's that discomfort that provokes the next wonderful thing. That happens a lot, actually, with humans, whether it's illness, as in your story, Karen, or divorce, as in my own stories, whatever it might be. Trust is the big thing that keeps rising up for me during this conversation.
And here's the thing, Karen. What are we trusting? Because it's this is really where we could call it trust. We can also call it faith. And so we all put our trust or our faith in something. We all put our faith in something. Faith is often attributed to religion, but it need not be. We put our faith in the laws of physics when we take a step that the ground will hold us. We put our faith in the engine of the car when we try to start it. We don't think about it. We just trust that it will work. So what more obvious, more present thing can we trust than what we are feeling here now? What we are feeling in our core, in our heart, in our soul, in our very being, our essence. This is what we must trust. And of course, when we trust this, and here, thank you, Karen, because this is the point I wanted to make. If we're trusting and we make such a decision, say, for instance, Karen, KG says that there was a Reiki circle and just called to stop it. And even though other people may. Now, when we're starting from this point within ourselves, just as in A Course in Miracles, when we start from this point of forgiveness and we forgive ourselves, it naturally extends from ourselves to all that we see and to every person with whom we interact, to all of our experience, so that if someone has a misperception about us or about something, we've already forgiven ourselves. And so we don't have to try to forgive. It's okay, that's fine. And so if we make this decision to be authentic, and I know it might seem to let everybody down, but I have to do this, then we are simultaneously and permanently in our life allowing all the people in our life to be authentic. And so that if somebody in our path does something similar where we're working with somebody and they just have to leave.
It might seem to let everybody down, but I have to do this.
This me speaking here. So if we make something and then somebody else in our life does something that we're not going to get ticked off. We're going to embrace it and say, bravo, I just made the same thing. So of course I understand. I don't hold it against you. You're following your calling. And even though you don't have to worry about what I think, trust in yourself. And so when we're in this point of trust, it naturally, this is the power of authenticity, is that when we're being authentic to what? Now remember, this is oneness. And Karen, I think one of your tabs probably just started playing video. That's what it did for me. So just look and you can close it. But if this is oneness, so when we're talking about authenticity, authenticity to what or to whom? It's not an isolated self. We are God experiencing God. So when we're authentic to ourselves, we're being authentic to God, right? So if we're authentic to God, we're allowing everybody in our path to be authentic to God. We're not being conditional and saying, because the flip side, if we're holding back from being authentic to God, then, of course, self, God, then if somebody does something in our path and we're going to subconsciously say, you can't do that because you have to make a sacrifice because I did the same thing. Naturally, whatever we really think about ourselves, we naturally see in everybody else. It's just the law of this existence. However we choose to see ourselves is how we will see everybody else. And it has to start from within. And of course, it resonates from without too, because there's no difference. This is the whole point. But right here now, the core of our being, we can choose. We must choose how to perceive ourselves, how to think about ourselves, from what point we're acting. Are we being authentic, and authentic to whom? Why are we doing certain things? And in so doing, it's not just about the individual experience. It's about the collective, because from our perspective and from our actions, we are encouraging, we're fostering this authenticity around us. So, Mother, I know you have something to say about this.
Not at all. It's very true. We have to be authentic. It's like I was saying before, sometimes you don't want to hurt somebody else, but you could do it in a very nice way for you. Because would you do to someone else what you're doing to yourself? And I would say, no, I would never do that to them. And meanwhile, I'm hurting myself. Does that make sense? So you don't want to, you're part of the equation. Be authentic.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Part of the equation. So we're part of this equation, meaning think of what an equation is. It says one thing is equal to another. Now we have this internal experience. It's equal to the external experience. How we choose to see within is what we will see without. This is what people are often called the law of attraction.
Mhm.
And of course, it's an equation, so we could start from either side. What we can actively improve or perfect our perception of all that we see, and thus perfect the perception of what's within. And so this whole equation, the whole equation is God, within, without, the equal sign. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. This is the Trinity. And so, yes. Now we're just 5 minutes off the top of the hour here. So I'd just like to thank everybody, first of all, before we have some closing words for joining us and for, I guess, being willing to grow with us. We're all at this time called to change. We're all, many of us are forced into change. And so it's this time of real upheaval. And so there's a power in this. There's a power in this change if we embrace it. It's when we're trying to fight against that. It's almost like we're rowing upstream here, and we must trust this greater flow that's guiding us in this path. Never in history have we been globally issued to stay at home and radically change our lifestyle. And so we have to trust. And now, Karen, you bring in how we can do it in a nice way. I like to call, I think you said gentle too. It's like this, think of how gentle, how there's much going on. I understand people are sick and people are losing jobs, but for many of us, it can be a very gentle process where we're called into just resting and our perspective has for too long been one of constant activity. Just as we have this balance here, it's the yin and the yang, and so when we're balanced, we have a balanced amount of rest and activity. The whole that is rest and activity is the powerful. It's not an activity alone. You could be spinning the wheel all day and getting nowhere. Of course, it's not in rest alone, but it's the combination. So if we can all just embrace the rest, because for too long we've been spinning this wheel, just going guns a-blazing, or must be a better way to say this. We've been getting horses a-blazing and spinning these things for what? For not all that much. And now we're called to rest. And I can guarantee you, I can vouch, I can confirm that there is a power to this rest, because first of all, we're called to do it from a perspective that knows something beyond what we know. And second of all, if we really think about it, the greatest things that really happen, of course, we work for, but we're just put in the right place at the right time. And so we meet this person just by chance, and it completely changes our life. Did we work for that? No, we were just in the flow. Or we're working on a project that's progressing in one way, and we're just shown a way that can up-level it by a quantum leap effortlessly. Now, we couldn't have worked for that. That comes through inspiration, which is a natural component of rest. So I know, Karen, you bring in rest at the beginning of the call, and I'd just like to bring it full circle as we close here, this importance of rest, because rest, I believe, is the ultimate. It can be a great show of authenticity, because it's giving ourselves this respect that we deserve. So, Karen, I perhaps Karen Gordon, I'm not sure if you want to say something, and then our special guest can close here.
I don't really have anything to add to that. Rest is not necessarily just, watching mindless TV. Rest can be quite active, and it's a true gift to ourselves is to take the time for rest. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Karen. It's really always a pleasure being with you.
Thank you for having me. And I just wanted you said everything perfectly. We need the time to rest. And I'll be honest, when March, April, May, beginning of the pandemic, I was forced to stay at home. And at the time, Tim was home. And I have to tell you, I so embraced rest. I did what I wanted when I wanted. I wrote. I did everything more than I could possibly do when I was overworked. Now, there has to be, as you said, somewhere in the middle between rest and keep going. Somewhere in the middle there, we can do it. And I do want, when some of you may be asking, okay, but I'm in the middle, I don't have a job, or I lost a loved one, and my heart goes out to you. So how do you think positively? As we were saying before, we have to think positively. We need to rest when you're going through such a thing. And the most important thing I could say here, fake it until you make it. This is something I do, and Tim's not going to like this because you have to be authentic, but it works so much. I've been wake up in the morning, and this is not faking it. And I just love everything. And I love the cold air, and I love the flowers and the trees and the leaves and everything. In the last couple of days, I feel everything sneaking up on me again, and the appointments building up again, and the work that needs to be done. And I just keep feeling it. And I'm like, I can't do this again. So what I do, and it doesn't work for everybody, but I do this in my classes, and it seems to work all the time because I deal with people who are grieving. I may be going off on a tangent here, but I think this would help. Music for me really does it. So I have Alexa. So I'll say, Alexa, play a song that makes me feel good. I wake up feeling, oh, I got to do this. I said, oh no, I'm not going back to that. Alexa, play Michael Bublé. How great does it feel? I sent it to you, Tim, video. Just a song that uplifts you, and I'm dancing, and I'm in my kitchen, and I'm getting ready. Sure enough, then I'm starting to feel better, and I'm ready to take on the day. So we have to begin the day being thankful, remembering who we really are, not changing our vibration. We're God. God is within us. And when we resonate more to the energy of who we really are, which is God, which is only love and only peace and all of that, and when we resonate to that level, we can't help but be happy. So sometimes we have to force it, but then you don't have to force it because then you're there. You're remembering who you really are. Does that make sense?
Of course, it's like smiling,
Right.
if you're upset, and then you force yourself to smile,
Right.
you've already cleared you feel good already,
Right.
And the song that you sent, it's I believe Nina Simone really originally, but it's a new day for me. And so
Oh,
when
that's
I'm
another
feeling-
one. Yeah.
Ah,
I keep saying
but
that.
I mean, this is a symbolic song, Mother. It's like,
I
it's a new
know.
day. And so this is also the power of song, is that we can attribute it to certain points in our life where it's a brand new day, new
Oh,
life.
that is the one. I'm sorry. That's Michael Bublé sings it though. Yes, a new day, right?
Yeah,
Maybe-
new life, a new life. Yeah, yeah. So this is a new life. And really think about this. I mean, you don't have to think about this, but
Mhm.
why wouldn't we be here to be joyous all the time? Why would God make us feel anything but joy? Why would God be difficult to understand or be distant from us or have to figure it out? Why wouldn't it be supremely simple? Why wouldn't it be here? Why can't we be joyous all the time? We can. We can. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to invent something for it to be. This is just our natural state. This is our natural state. So thank you, all of us here, for being here and being authentic.
Thank you.
And so this is our community call, and my mother, Karen, thank you for joining us, and sister Karen. And we have also Dee Meyer helping on the chats, on the other platforms and such behind the scenes. And of course, Garth Catterall. Thank you for setting everything up that is broadcast. We will be up here again the first Friday of the new year. So stay tuned and we'll pick out what module is shown and we'll see what we're talking about.
Actually, let me just correct that. The first Friday is January 1st, so we will be meeting on January 8th next month, and we'll send out the reminders.
Karen Gordon, among being the communications communicator, is the keeper of calendars
Yes.
and the keeper of docs and plates, which is code name for the workload of some
Call
of
me
us.
K-Docs if you meet me on the street.
So thank you all. Thank you, Mother.
Thank you.
I'll see you next time. Love you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bless.